The first one, which I'm excited to announce, is Jill Kress. Jill is the VP of Consumer Marketing at PayPal. As the VP of Growth Marketing, her role is to lead the teams that are focused on PayPal and Venmo, charged with driving consumer acquisition and engagement. She oversees all the innovative partnerships, targeted lifecycle, and brand marketing strategies. This session today will be moderated by Amy Vale, the Chief Marketing Officer of Dosh. Amy, I'll let you kind of intro a little bit about Dosh, but welcome both Jill and Amy. How are you guys doing?
Thanks so much for the intro, Davina. It's great to be here.
Hi, and I echo Amy's enthusiasm about joining the group today.
Awesome. Well, shall we jump in? I'm really excited for this conversation, Jill. Dosh is the frictionless or automatic cashback platform that is connecting millions of consumers to thousands of brands and retailers across the country. And so today I'm excited to be chatting with you, Jill, about payments, about purpose, and about marketing innovation. So why don't we dive in? First of all, I wanted to really dig into purpose. It's something that has really guided my career journey and has become incredibly prevalent in the last 6 months. We both work at companies that are purpose-driven. And so I'd love to really dig in and have you share more about what PayPal and Venmo's mission is and why it's important that you work at a purpose-driven organization as well.
Yeah, I would love to chat about that. Thanks so much, Amy. I joined PayPal late last year in 2019. And one of the things that really mattered to me as I was sorting for what was next in my career was working for a purpose-led organization. I spent the good majority of both my career and my life at MasterCard, which is a company that really leads with purpose, and then was at National Geographic, which obviously is a company that really believes deeply in its role in protecting the planet. And so as I was thinking about the things that mattered to me, working for a company that believed deeply in purpose was one of the top criteria. And PayPal was a company that I had been following for some period of time, being someone who's been in the payments industry for a long time. And I had been following PayPal's CEO, Dan Schulman, across his social channels and really became inspired by the work that PayPal was doing to not only talk about its purpose, but really invest in making, bringing its capital power to making purpose happen. And so, it's hugely important to me. And I think, one of the things that I've really come to learn and appreciate is that when this version of PayPal was founded 5 years ago, when it separated from eBay, its mission was absolutely at the foundation of how PayPal organized itself under Dan Schulman's leadership. And it was designed around a mission of democratization of financial services and an inclusive belief that financial services should not be limited to an elite few. They should be available to all, regardless of your economic or social situation. And it continues to be a really guiding force for PayPal and Venmo in how we've thought about our response during COVID and what we've done to step up in moments of social unrest that have played out in recent months. So as someone who chose PayPal because I believed deeply in its mission and values, it's been so incredibly rewarding to see those values come to life at a time where it really matters and how we think about our role in welcoming new customers onto the PayPal and Venmo platform as a result of COVID and shifting to more online shopping, and then some really significant capital investments that we have made to support Black Lives Matter, which I can talk a little bit about.
Amazing. And I think you've really started to touch on my next question. 2020 has brought us a very unique situation as marketers and as businesses and brands. And a lot of organizations are really sort of reimagining the traditional approaches that they look in terms of supporting their clients and customers.
Yeah.
And so I'd really love for you to unpack how PayPal and Venmo are supporting businesses, brands, and the millions of users in this really unique and unprecedented time.
Yeah. I think one of the things that has been pretty consistent in the short tenure that I've been at PayPal is a pervasive approach to looking at the environment and asking where is it that we can do the most good and make the most difference. And what started to play out during COVID was the reality that PayPal and Venmo were really becoming essential services during COVID. We saw a significant shift in purchase behavior to online shopping. And we saw new consumers joining both the PayPal and the Venmo community. And we saw new customers joining in, tremendous numbers, both PayPal and Venmo. And we saw those across different demographic cohorts. And what that meant was that there were some cohorts, kind of an over 50 age population of kind of new to online shopping cohort that was coming into PayPal, which meant that we needed to think about how we could provide educational context, how to instructional videos and content. It meant that when the last government stimulus push happened, that we were able to quickly mobilize the ability to let our consumer audience know that you could both receive direct deposit through PayPal and Venmo and cash your government stimulus check through PayPal. And so really working on driving awareness so that we could be available to help consumers who needed that relief fund, and ensure that we found a way to do that seamlessly and easy for those consumers. And the same on the small business side of things, in the way that we supported PPP and continue to be a real driving force for small businesses. And as COVID played out and the social protests and unrest around Black Lives Matter played out, I was really impressed with a very fast and incredibly compelling response in the way of real capital investment that played out on behalf of PayPal. The first was creating a fund for employees to really invest in inclusion efforts and really allowing those who drive that to be able to invest more in the ability to make that happen, and to really ensure that it's not just about diversity, but also really fostering a real sense of what it means to drive inclusion at PayPal, which is incredibly important. And then providing grants. We created a $10 million fund, which was designed to provide immediate grants for those who were impacted by protests during the time of COVID, and $5 million to support nonprofits who were on the ground. But was really amazing was a $500 million commitment that PayPal made to support Black and minority-owned businesses. And as I look at that and look at the pace at which we responded to that, and really ensuring that we invest in high growth Black and minority owned startups to really accelerate and kickstart economies, that it's really it's just inspiring to see that these are the questions that PayPal asks themselves, which how can we make the most difference, and how can we really step up, whether it's helping consumers, small businesses, or those who need our help most.
That's amazing. I was really struck at how quickly PayPal and Venmo was able to mobilize around their efforts around Black Lives Matter. Obviously, Dan Schulman's position that was posted on LinkedIn, it really, really demonstrates that it's truly woven into the fabric of the organization. And the other piece that's woven into the fabric of the organization is innovation. Yeah. So you mentioned that you had joined PayPal just under a year ago, but you have been in the payments industry for almost 25 years. I would love just for you to share a little bit of background on just how far payments and marketing as well has come in your career, and any sort of highlights that you can remember that would be interesting for the audience to know.
Yeah, it's such a great question, and one that causes a little bit of pause to reflect, because you just kind of become immersed in the reality of the environment that we all live in now, which is everything digital all the time. And when I started at MasterCard well over 25 years ago, it was very much a card based experience. Debit cards were just coming into becoming a solution, and doing a job for a different segment of customers. Co-branded cards and loyalty didn't exist at the time. I can remember doing a sizzle film for a client when I was at MasterCard that we were pitching to, on how MasterCard was thinking about innovation. And it was a high concept video that is very much the reality of the lives that we all lead right now, which is, leaving your house with your phone, checking into a flight with your phone, being able to pay with your phone. And now that's all a reality. And at one point, that was just a big ambition in how tech companies and payment companies like MasterCard and then PayPal, when they came in, to really accelerate the ability to drive digital payments and connect buyers and sellers. We're just sort of thinking about things. So it's been a really exciting journey. And I think one of the reasons that I stayed in this category and ultimately chose to come back to this category is because of the fact that it is, a category that's always thinking about what's next for the consumer. What is the role of innovation in driving simplicity and engagement and consumer delight? And the role of a marketer has also really evolved in being able to meet consumers with really relevant solutions to create meaningful connections with consumers through loyalty solutions, like we do across our Venmo platform in partnership with Dosh, to do that in a really seamless and easy way. And I think that the ability to leverage technology, innovative platforms, and forward-looking thinking to create real connectivity and delight for our customers is something that I never grow tired of. And so it's fun to continue to push the boundaries of what that means for our customers.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I love, watching Venmo and PayPal really sort of push the envelope when it comes to innovation and creating this really connected consumer experience and journey that really sort of leverages technology and takes the friction away. I think that's really the powerful piece around the PayPal and Venmo brands. And interestingly, digital payments have really been a literal lifesaver for businesses and consumers since COVID surged earlier in the year. And so in what way have you seen the pandemic itself fast track marketing and payments innovations in this consumer journey? Because that's something that it really naturally expedited a lot of the thinking that may have been in many businesses' minds. But I think PayPal and Venmo has done a really nice job of answering that call.
Yeah, I think being a digital first brand and also being one of the most trusted brands in the category put PayPal in a really unique position during this time of COVID. And I think, again, given that our purpose and our connectivity and a sense of responsibility to our customers drives everything that we do, it was really around ensuring that we were driving, education and ease of use wherever we could. But we definitely saw massive shifts in spend to online commerce. The grocery category grew significantly in the way of, new cohorts of consumers experiencing online grocery delivery for the first time. And then we saw some really lovely things. Like, I think the thing that was most interesting to me as a marketer was to see how human ingenuity was playing out on the PayPal platform, and how human generosity was also really facilitated both by PayPal and by Venmo. So, fun little facts: in the UK, at the peak of COVID, 1,500 dog treats were procured every day.
Amazing.
And, there were like, on a daily basis, over 9,000 kind of drawing and craft purchases in the UK that played out. And so we thought about those kinds of shifts in how people were buying things and what they were buying and what it meant, right? And it meant that people were finding new ways to care for their families, for their pets, and to keep their kids busy. And that inspired how we thought about our social content and really celebrating parents who were, finding ways to kind of get by and keep their kids entertained at home. So really looking at that data was really interesting. On Venmo, we saw this incredible shift of generosity in how our community of Venmo users started using the peer-to-peer platform to take care of each other. And so we saw a shift in, Venmo is a social platform. And so people express the emotion behind their payments through emojis. And so as COVID started to take off, we saw a really significant uptake in the use of the sort of medical mask emoji, of the nurse emoji. And so we pizzas went down, beer emojis went down, and we saw that people were, using PayPal to take care of those who needed it most. At the, peak of Black Lives Matter, we saw over 800,000 Venmo payments made in support of efforts associated with that. And that allows us to really give support to and a nod to our Venmo community. So we jumped into that conversation with an effort, which was Venmo It Forward. So where we saw people doing acts of good on Venmo, we provided a credit back to their Venmo account, a $20 credit, and encouraged them to continue to pay, kind of Venmo it forward. And what was really great was we saw that the majority of people who received a payment note from Venmo, recognizing their Venmo it forward, paid it back and gave that $20 to someone else to, continue the movement and use the platform for good. So, lots of human ingenuity, lots of generosity, and people finding ways to, do the things that provided comfort and support that they needed in the way of keeping their homes running. I mean, we all, I think, jumped into the need for hair care products and, all sorts of, things that we weren't able to do in the physical world anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the things that's been most striking to me about this time is that really, I think there's always this balance that business is trying to strike between social impact and driving the bottom line. But really what this year has shown is that humanity drives the bottom line. Humanity drives engagement. And that's really the thing that is, I think I'll be taking out of this year, is really just what that connection means between humans and business. It's actually much stronger than we anticipated.
Yeah, I definitely, I think that's exactly right, Amy. And I think, when the response is to do the right thing for your stakeholders, at PayPal, those are, our employees, as well as our customers, consumers, small businesses, large merchants, you end up doing the right thing for your business. One example is as we have entered the reality of getting back into the physical world, one of the real barriers that both consumers and merchants are facing is concerns around having to, touch cards, touch terminals, touch payments. At the same time, you have consumers really wanting to get back out and support small and local businesses. So you've got, over 70% of consumers in the US really conscious of wanting to support local communities. And so, that created a lot of opportunity to help sellers and buyers through bringing a PayPal and Venmo solution to the physical world, to allow payments to take place through QR codes. So that's been, to that point, it's like, what is the right thing to do? The right thing is to create an environment where buyers and sellers can connect in a touch-free way, and sort of taking what PayPal has represented, which has been the safest way to pay online, into the physical world through the ease of QR codes and being able to, go to a farmer's market, support a local farmer, buy something from them, all by just simply taking out your phone and scanning a QR code that they have at their stand. The same is playing out with food trucks, and also, lots of kind of micro sellers who are, teaching yoga or fitness, coffee shops and the like. And we're really excited to see momentum with large enterprise merchants. We actually just announced a partnership with CVS to bring the ability to pay with your phone using QR technology to large merchants like that. So anyway, it's certainly a very exciting time at PayPal as we push the boundaries of, what it means to be an omni-commerce player, all while still supporting the very important element of choice, so that consumers can fund those payments through the usual choices that they have of credit cards, debit cards, checking accounts that they use to fund their Venmo or PayPal account.
Amazing. And I think that's just sort of leans in so heavily to the innovation of really sort of removing that friction of fear that consumers and merchants may feel in that environment, and being able to sort of mobilize around that so quickly is really, again, a testament to the innovation that PayPal and Venmo really live and breathe every day. One of the things that I wanted to touch on next was into the consumer insight sort of space was, as things were changing so quickly in the first and second, sort of early into the second quarter of the year, at Dosh, we were really curious to understand how consumers were feeling about where they were spending their money, what they needed from brands and retailers to really get them to spend with them. And so what we found was we conducted 2 surveys, one in April and one just completed in July. And we found that by July, nearly 60% of consumers reported that they were spending as much, if not more, than before the pandemic, which really, really surprised me. I'm curious to sort of, I know you've shared some earlier insights around some consumer behavior on the Venmo platform. I'd love to hear of any other sort of surprising insights that surfaced during the time as things were sort of in a rapid pace of change.
Yeah, one of the things that has been really interesting to watch evolve has been how consumers have thought about rewards currency overall. So, many consumers, including myself, stockpile things like airline miles or hotel loyalty points with the big ambition of, going on vacation one day. And, we had been working on functionality to facilitate payments with rewards points, which was something that we did in collaboration with financial institutions like Chase and Citibank, Discover, Amex, which was, really a win-win. So the issuer could get some relief from the points liability, and the consumer could, enroll in a pay with rewards solution on PayPal to be able to use those points for things that they need. In COVID, of course, stockpiling our points for trips that may not happen for a very long time started to become, started to accelerate the opportunity for different use cases in how consumers could use those rewards. And what was interesting is, we did lots of research as we started to launch that experience in partnership with those issuers who I mentioned, was to really get a sense of what consumers were looking to do with those rewards. And, they were looking to simply use those rewards to keep their household going. So, they talked about using rewards points to buy toilet paper and to even buy things like bottled water for their house. The other really lovely thing was that they wanted to make donations with their reward points, sort of at this moment where, they knew that others were in need and they were sitting on, loyalty points that could do good for others. And so we were able to, facilitate that and enable donate with rewards. So people are using their loyalty points to actually do good and help others. And, that's been another, the power of people wanting to do good and to drive contributions is another really powerful part of the PayPal and Venmo solution. So we have, our PayPal community through our donations platform has raised over $2.8 billion in donations through the end of May. And, the giving platform is something that's, you may see it if you check out on PayPal. Would you like to give to Feeding America? Would you like to give, in times of crisis, to the Red Cross? So it's really been great to see that consumers have, opted into things like that. They've proactively gone to the platform to make larger donations. They're aggregating their loyalty points and donating with rewards. And it's really, really, it's inspiring to see that kind of consumer behavior and awareness on responsibility play out.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'd mentioned earlier that Dosh powers Venmo Rewards.
Yeah.
So I would love to sort of dig in a little bit. I know rewards and cashback, you'd mentioned sort of the stockpiling of points and all of those sort of traditional models of rewards. And cashback is sort of going through a reimagination, if you will. And so I'd love to understand how Venmo Rewards has really sort of helped drive that connection between Venmo and its users.
Yeah, it's, I think particularly at this moment where people are trying to be as efficient and effective as possible with every dollar and how they can, keep their households and their spend dedicated to the things that matter. The Venmo loyalty solution is so seamless and so easy. Interesting little use case at the Crest household. We have we had our lunch just before this call, and my husband went to Bear Burger and used his Venmo debit card and got a very generous cashback deposit immediately into his Venmo account. So it's that seamless, right? You pay with Venmo. The Venmo debit card is amazing in that it allows you to use Venmo in the physical world, at the physical points of sale anywhere that MasterCard is accepted. So really, using that vehicle to bridge the gap between what normally plays out in Venmo, but accessing your Venmo balance in the physical world to pay for goods and services. And when you layer on Dosh with that, which powers Venmo Rewards, the consumer doesn't have to do anything, right? You don't even have to. You shop where you shop, and those rewards just accrue back into your Venmo account. So it's a really powerful solution. And, for consumers who are proactive, to be able to go into your app and see where those offers are available and to make, the choice to choose those merchants, knowing that you're going to get a cashback credit right into your Venmo account that you can use to send money to a loved one or to, go back out into the world and buy something else. It is really, really powerful. And I think that seamless nature, the fact that all you do is opt in, go out and use your Venmo debit card, and you are automatically accruing these cashback rewards in a way that's just so easy, is a really powerful solution to our Venmo users.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's so encouraging to be able to hear that the technology is really sort of leaning into taking away that friction, the same way that all of the other amazing innovation that PayPal and Venmo is really focused on for the consumer experience. So I'm thrilled that that's really what's creating some connection, and I'm so glad that your husband was able to get some cash back for lunch.
And that inspired my daughter to look at other offers, and she's looking at Anthropology and Urban Outfitters as we speak, who have a current Venmo Rewards offer in place through Dosh. So, I think that's the other thing is I think, meeting the consumer where they are with those kinds of offers so that it's relevant merchants, that it's really, the ability to understand the audience and where they shop and where that kind of cashback will be most, useful to them. And so the fact that it's available at so many different merchant partners, you start using it and it just really, it can add up in a really delightful way.
Absolutely. Well, we've got some time for some questions. So are you ready for some questions?
I'm always ready for questions. Let's do it. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So the first one is, what trends in consumer behavior are of particular importance to you? and marketers now, and how are users consuming media, or consumers consuming media, and how is that sort of interacting with brands differently?
So, from a PayPal and Venmo point of view, we've got a lot happening. We are trying to get into the physical world, as I said, through QR code solutions, and facilitating touch-free ways to pay. We are launching new solutions to enable our users, so like we did with, reminding consumers that you could cash a check through your PayPal app, that you can take direct deposit um, into your PayPal or Venmo account as a result of, just on a regular basis, or through something like, the economic impact stimulus that will hopefully hit again. So some of what we do requires some explanation, and we have definitely become a more of a show me versus tell me brand, and really using content to tell those stories and to do it in a way that connects with our audience. So, one of the things that we've been doing more of is working with relevant influencers that connect with our audience. So during COVID, it was very much around, connecting with a new cohort of parents who were becoming active in the PayPal platform. So that inspired how we thought about different influencers who could talk about how they were using some of our products and solutions. We have a great product, which is called Money Pool, which is also, easy once you use it, but potentially a bit complicated. So let's say you want to hire an art teacher to do an online art class for a group of toddlers to keep them busy. You can create a money pool on your PayPal app, send out an app, and everyone sends $10 in, and you've got the pool of money to now pay the art teacher.
So cool.
So it's very cool. So, working with influencers to tell to tell those stories, reaching consumers through audio is so powerful, as we've seen, massive increase in adoption of audio through the, sort of just an organic trend that was playing out there, but that was accelerated through COVID as more people were listening to podcasts. So, again, leaning into the opportunity that we have to tell those stories with the likes of podcast hosts that resonate with our audience, with QR codes, being able to tell the story of how a small business can become active and set up QR to take payments, doing that through podcast hosts that happen to speak to small business owners is a really smart way for us to tell that story. So those are a couple of areas of focus for us.
Awesome. Okay, there's a great question here around leadership. What are the things that, from a leadership perspective, that you would like your team to take away this year?
Well, what an interesting time to step into a leadership role than during COVID. So I joined PayPal in November, and I am very much a connector of people. I like to think that I'm a culture carrier. I believe that when we know each other, we can work better together. So I did get out into the markets where I have teams of people. I run a global team, so I've got big teams of folks in Paris and Berlin and London. So I'm really glad that my instinct, which was to get out and meet my team early and often before COVID hit, was something that I did. I actually was in Berlin and back in London the first week of March when things really started to heat up with COVID. And I thought, best get back to the US.
Yeah.
But sort of, using that experience in those moments that I did have to connect with my team and have some sense of who they were and what motivated them as a way to drive kind of a leadership agenda through this moment helped me. But it really means being, I think, as a leader, vulnerable, so that our people realize that they can be vulnerable. Everyone is leaning in so very hard at this moment, particularly given the ambitious agenda we have at PayPal. But I also think people want to show up as resilient and being able to take on all of the challenges of what it means to work at home in a way that, they show up as competent and agile, and being able to kind of work through this ambiguity. So I think creating a platform for a level of vulnerability. I mean, this is not easy. No. And I'm fortunate in that I have a grown child who's college age. So I'm not trying to juggle daycare and school and things like that. It also means showing up with empathy for my team, who's got a lot more to juggle, I think, in the way of work-life balance through this than I do. Leading by example, which is not necessarily obvious. I mean, it means like actually talking about what that means for me. So doing loads of, we do a lot of all hands. I talk about the things that keep me in balance and kind of the rituals that I try to embrace so that my team feels comfortable and kind of setting those boundaries and creating rituals that matter to them. At the Kress household, that's very much dinner. It's always been a way of how we connected and checked in on our days. And I found that the calendar was just getting so jam-packed that the dinners were not happening. And it was, it was not a good part of my day to miss family dinner. So, really being conscious of talking about that ritual with my team, and that, I do block the calendar. I take time off. It's okay to do those kinds of things. So I think it's about, being really aware of being vulnerable, being empathetic, and being overt in talking about our own challenges and how we're addressing some of those, and telling, like, I'll post pictures on our Slack channel of me having, dinner, or things that I'm doing, like taking a conference call while I'm walking, so people realize that I kind of do the things that I'm doing, because, we just don't have all those moments to be able to share with our teams how we're coping.
Absolutely. And I think the last thing I would add to that before we close out the conversation is, one of the things that I've found really important is to actually share with my team when I hadn't done a good job of recognizing that I didn't set a boundary, and just being able to say, you know what, guys, I could have done a lot better there. And this was the thing that made me realize that I can do better next time. Because I think sometimes it's about reflecting back on what you could have done better after you're left with the experience, versus being able to institute those things, because it's really about building that muscle, because we don't have that inherent boundary of going into the office and then leaving it, even though we are always connected. It's one of those things where I think being able to sort of flag and be able to share that, hey, I didn't do a good job of setting this boundary, and it impacted me, but hey, I've identified it, and we should all be really, really focused on making sure we look out for those signals.
I love that. I think that's absolutely right. And I think that's a moment of, leading with vulnerability and highlighting not only what you're doing well, but what, the challenges. And this is, we are all learning as we go with this. And the fact that it's going to go on for, an undefined period of time means that we'll have more of those moments and more of those opportunities to learn, to grow, and hopefully to connect. So thanks for sharing that. I agree.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jill. Davina, I see you there. I would love to hand it back over to you, Jill. It's been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for inviting me. It was great, Amy. Thanks for all the great questions, and time to connect.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill.
Thanks.
Davina.